8 now. If I mention the term home children, would you know what I was talking about? Well, if you don't, these were innocent children removed from their families and sent to the Birmingham Children's Emigration Homes in Highgate before being sent to far-flung parts of the Commonwealth like Australia and Canada. Well, a new project starts today to piece together the children's life stories for an exhibition and book based on these lost children of Birmingham. Val Hart is Secretary of Balsall Heath Local History Society, who are behind the project. She joins me in the studio. Val, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, if you'd just like to lean in a bit for us, what are you actually trying to do then with this?
We're keen to raise the profile of the children's emigration homes because we think that most people in Birmingham are not aware of this important aspect of our heritage.
I was going to say, look at my face. This is news to me. I've heard of other, but I didn't know that there was a Birmingham involvement.
Yes, indeed. I mean, obviously there was a huge amount of immigration from all over the country, but in Birmingham, John Middlemore, of the famous Middlemore family, founded the homes in 1872 in St Luke's Road, Highgate. And until a couple of months ago, the original building was still standing there. Sadly, it's now been demolished to make way for housing.
Why are you actually doing this? Is it just in case it all gets lost?
Yes, indeed. It's been funded by the Heritage Lottery. And we think that actually, I mean, in Canada, there's a huge amount of awareness of the work of the homes. And as you say, the term home child is the one that's used most often to describe these children. But in Birmingham, whenever I mention the emigration homes, people get a blank stare from people. They don't know what I'm talking about. And we think people should be aware of the part that we've played in this city in sending children to Canada.
Well, yes, and between what years? Because I'm seeing something in the dark, dim recesses of my mind, and believe me, it is very dark and dim in there. It was thinking, I seem to remember sort of 50s, going Australia and things like that, but that's a different thing altogether, isn't it?
It's not different. It was a development of it.
A development of it.
The children's emigration homes, which were later called the Middlemore homes, operated from 1872 and on the whole went on till 1948. And they did send a few children to Australia in the later part of that period, together with Fairbridge, where they worked in partnership with. But on the whole, most of the Middlemore children, about 6,000 of them, went to Canada.
Now, who would you like to hear from as part of the project? Survivors?
Well, we've been very interested. Part of the project is not just to raise awareness, but also talk to relatives and survivors of the homes and people who are descended from people who were taken to Canada, and relatives in Britain. And we have made contact with somebody who I think might be about to talk to us.
Certainly, this sounds like this is your life. We've flown them all the way from Canada to be here tonight. You see, Patricia Skidmore's mother, Marjorie, was sent from the Middlemore homes in Birmingham to Vancouver Island back in 1937, and Patricia joins me now from Canada. Patricia, hello there.
Well, good. I was going to say good evening, but it's good morning there.
I was going to say it's 10 to 8 here. What's the time there at the moment?
It's 10 to midnight.
Oh, fair enough, but we're ahead of you. It's shaping up to be a lovely day today, Patricia. Tell me about your mum, if you would.
Well, she was removed from her mother's care in February of 1937 and placed in the emigration home in Selly Oak, so the Middlemore emigration home there, along with a brother and two sisters. And by September 1937, she passed away last year, but she liked to say she was deported to Canada. And it really was apparently to her mother's eternal distress that she lost her children to Canada. She did not want them to go, but was coerced, I guess you might say, into letting them go.
Yes, you looked into your mother's history. You looked into it to help her.
Yeah, well, she was so traumatized by being removed that she blacked out her past and her childhood and the journey over. So together we went back and we actually found a lot of information in the archives in Birmingham and in the Fairbridge archives at Liverpool, and we started to piece her bits and pieces together. And she said to me, well, they didn't just throw me away, they kept records of me, and that helped trigger memories. And so together we did put her story actually in a book. So I've written 2 books on her journey to Canada and her 5 years incarceration at the Fairbridge Farm School on Vancouver Island.
I was going to say, incarceration, if I can bring Val back in here, it sounds like this was a lot of very unwilling participants in this. It was, children who... What was the rationale in that case? How did they decide which children went to Canada or whatever?
Well, the Sorry,
I'll ask Val, and then I can talk to you,
Yeah.
Patricia. Val.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think when John Middlemore first had the idea, he'd seen some of these sort of children being placed with farmers in the backwoods of Canada already. But the story goes that he was walking through Birmingham and observing all the children on the streets, destitute, orphaned, in rags, living a really sordid existence and with no means of support. And his view was that he could give them a better life in Canada. And it was for the betterment of their lives. And a further element that came into it later, I think, was to populate the empire with good British stock.
I see. It was the Victorians and the Empire. It was for everyone's good. However,
Absolutely.
Patricia, I don't think your mother was that keen on the idea, was she?
No, she wasn't. I think there's a lot that weren't. But for this Fairbridge Farm School, it's called the Prince of Wales Fairbridge Farm School because the then Prince of Wales, Edward, who abdicated, fundraised to help set up more of these schools. So it was just not a good spot for her. And what he said when he was fundraising was that this is not a charity. It's an imperial investment, and that seems to be what was happening.
That's
just
what
the last-ditch effort.
Was what Val alluded to as well. What were the circumstances that your mother was living in before she was effectively scooped up and, as you say, deported?
Well, in her case, everybody's case is going to be different. But at the Fairbridge Farm School here on Vancouver Island, 329 children were sent, and 95% weren't orphans. So in my mother's case, they were all living in Whitley Bay. My grandfather was in London because there was no work in the Newcastle, Whitley Bay area, and he was saving to bring his family down to the London area with him. And I believe it was the Fairbridge Society who said to him, can we have your kids? I don't know how they said it, but I found his letter, and he said, if it's okay with me, if it's okay with my wife and children.
And so obviously someone said yes. You've actually got a special trip over to the UK tomorrow, haven't you? So your bags are packed, I take it.
My bags are packed. We're heading out tomorrow, and we're taking some of my mom back. We're going to bring some of her ashes back to her place of birth in Whitley Bay.
That's lovely.
We're bringing her home.
Bringing her home. Patricia Skidmore, whose mum Marjorie was sent from the Middlemore homes in Birmingham to Vancouver Island, 1937, and Val Hart, Secretary of Balsall Heath Local History Society. Thank you very much indeed for being on the programme this morning. That's